Good morning. We have a quorum now, and I would call this meeting of the Committee on Small Business to order. For the first time in a long time, America's small businesses are very optimistic about their future. In fact, the National Federation of Independent Business, NFIB, their February Small Business Optimism Index, released this week, hit its second highest mark in its 45-year history of that survey. This shows that small business owners are excited about their prospects and that they are leading the economy in a period of robust growth. Not only are they reporting higher profits, but they're also growing and expanding. Without question, America's entrepreneurs are leading the charge in our recent economic success. Over the last few years of my chairmanship on this committee, we have held hearings that examine the plethora of problems that, despite the good economic news we see, still hamper small business growth. As a result of numerous meetings with our constituents, trade association representatives, and several hearings on these issues, the committee today is considering 6 pieces of legislation. These are H.R. 4743, the Small Business Lending Oversight Reform Act of 2018, that's the 7A program, introduced by myself and Ranking Member Velasquez. H.R. 5178, the Puerto Rico Small Business Contracting Assistance Act of 2018, introduced by Ranking Member Velasquez. H.R. 3170, the Small Business Development Center Cyber Training Act of 2017, introduced by myself and Mr. Evans from Pennsylvania. H.R. 4668, the Small Business Advanced Cybersecurity Enhancement Act of 2017, introduced again by myself and the Ranking Member, Ms. Velasquez. H.R. 2655, the Small Business Innovation Protection Act of 2017, introduced by Mr. Evans and co-sponsored by Mr. Fitzpatrick, both of Pennsylvania. And finally, H.R. 52366, the Main Street Employee Ownership Act of 2018, introduced by our Ranking Member, Ms. Velasquez. As has become standard practice during my time as chair of this committee, these bills are brought before us in a bipartisan fashion. Both the Ranking Member and I support each of the 6 bills to be marked up today. I'd like to thank Ms. Velasquez, her staff, particularly Melissa Young, and all our members, both Republican and Democrat, and I guess we should thank our staff too, for their hard work and continued bipartisan commitment to putting America's entrepreneurs first. While we will discuss each bill more thoroughly as each is called up, I want to stress the importance of enacting these reforms. 2 of these bills address access to capital, which remains stubbornly difficult for entrepreneurs to obtain despite a greatly improving economy. These same 2 bills also significantly increase oversight of Small Business Administration's flagship 7A loan program. 2 additional bills address the ominous threat of cyber attacks and how small businesses can prepare and respond to them. Another bill seeks to jumpstart contracting opportunities for devastated disaster areas, and yet another aims to improve intellectual property protections for small businesses. Each is important in its own way, and each attempts to make the business of being in business a little easier for our entrepreneurs. I urge my colleagues to support all of these bills, and I would now recognize our Ranking Member, Ms. Velasquez, for her opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And let me also thank you for holding this important session and working with us across party lines. I am pleased that today's markup follows in our committee's tradition of bipartisan collaboration. Let me take this opportunity to thank the staff from both sides of the aisle. Melissa Hunt and Joe Hartz, Rob Yeager, James Birchfield. Thank you all for your input and your desire to come to work and bring this legislative bills to fruition. The bills before us will make significant progress in addressing a variety of barriers to entrepreneurship, from hardening cybersecurity to improving the patents process to oversight of the SBA's 7A lending program. Access to capital is another key ingredient for job growth. This committee has prioritized this issue, and today we will consider 2 bills to improve lending. The first of the day is a bill stabilizing the Small Business Administration flagship program, the 7A Loan Guarantee Program. By improving lender oversight and providing program clarity, we will be ensuring borrowers and lenders in the 7A program have certainty and transparency. In addition, the legislation prevents an interruption in the flow of capital through the 7A program by granting the agency flexibility with regards to its lending cap authority. These are important changes, and I look forward to working with the chairman to see them enacted. The other lending bill improves access to capital and education to transition small firms to employee ownership, whether it is an employee stock ownership plan or co-op. Doing so empowers the next generation of small business owners and sustains local jobs. The second bill we will discuss today touches upon an issue that is very dear to me: assisting small businesses and the economy in Puerto Rico. Nearly 6 months since Hurricane Maria slammed the island, Puerto Rico remains in crisis. According to reports, 20% of the island's small firms, more than 10,000 in total, are still closed. And those that have opened are suffering significantly, with some owners reporting sales that are down to 90, 99%, 95%. Making matters worse, an estimated 200 residents or even more have left for the mainland, leaving small employers without workers. And residents who have stayed are hurting, as insurance claims and federal emergency assistance is painstakingly slow to be paid out. When it comes to helping Puerto Rico, we must use every tool at our disposal. As such, I am grateful this committee is considering a bill to offer assistance. While it is not as robust as H.R. 2488, the Puerto Rico Small Business Assistance Act, a comprehensive package of lending, contracting, and entrepreneurial assistance for the island, I appreciate the efforts of the chairman to support the bill being offered today, which is a strong start. This bill will take important steps to involve more Puerto Rican small businesses in the federal marketplace, creating economic opportunity when the island needs it the most. Another area we can serve our nation's small firm is in cybersecurity. America's entrepreneurs have always been vital to technological growth and advancement, but they have also been vulnerable to cyber attacks and data breaches. Because of the complexity and cost associated with identifying, monitoring, and sharing information with appropriate agencies, only 31% of small firms have cybersecurity plans in place. For this reason, several pieces of legislation we are marking up today will make valuable strides to establish small business development centers as information repositories for cybersecurity assistance, training, and information sharing. By centralizing small business cyber resources and enhancing the Office of Advocacy's role with regard to cyber rulemaking, these bills will strengthen small business cybersecurity. A final issue of great concern is the use of international domestic intellectual property and patent protections. Many U.S. small firms are at a disadvantage because they lack resources and training to obtain, maintain, and enforce patents. A bill before us today will leverage resources as the SBA and U.S. Patent and Trade Office to educate small businesses on domestic and international patent protection. By better protecting small firms' intellectual property abroad, this bill will spur job creation here at home. Taken together, Mr. Chairman, I believe we have a strong package of bills before us. So I would like to thank you again for working with the Democratic members. I look forward to seeing this bill passed by the committee and through the entire House. I yield back.
Thank you very much. Gentlelady yields back. Do any other members seek recognition at this time? Seeing none, the first bill we will consider today is H.R. 4743, the Small Business 7A Lending Oversight Reform Act of 2018. This bipartisan and bicameral legislation, introduced by myself and the ranking member and co-sponsored by numerous members of this committee, aims to modernize and strengthen the SBA's lender oversight tools. I now recognize Mr. Kelly for an opening statement on H.R. 4743.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for yielding. As the subcommittee chairman, I first held a hearing on this topic back in March of 2017. At that hearing, our committee explored the 7A loan program, and a focus quickly developed on the importance of the credit elsewhere test. As we all know, this test is a gatekeeper of the program, and it determines whether a small business can access the government guarantee. I'm pleased to see such important reforms included in H.R. 4743 on the credit elsewhere test. Not only does it strengthen the test, but it also clarifies and refocuses the test on a borrower's ability to access capital. Overall, H.R. 4743 provides reforms to protect the 7A loan program for small businesses that truly deserve SBA services. I urge my colleagues to support this much-needed legislation, and I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman yields back, and the ranking member is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The 7A loan program is a vital source of capital for thousands of small businesses unable to secure financing through traditional lending. At the beginning of this Congress, our committee held a series of hearings measuring the success and limitations of the 7A program. We actively investigated how this program is being utilized, and we worked with stakeholders to improve the program. Both lenders and the agency have said oversight could be improved and transparency increased with legislative action. This bill is the product of that feedback and will make long overdue reforms to the program. The legislation increases transparency and uniformity for both lenders and the agency by codifying the Office of Credit Risk Management and Lender Oversight Committee. It also requires the office to internally submit a budget to ensure there is justification of the fees, salaries, and expenses used to carry out oversight functions. We also heard that the credit elsewhere test, a bedrock of the program, was not clear enough and lacked an SBA verification component. This bill better clarifies the credit elsewhere test and bolsters verification of how it is fulfilled. Finally, we all remember 2015 when the program ran out of authority to lend before the end of the year. This created an artificial run on the lenders to get loans approved, unfairly harmed small businesses that needed credit, and ultimately required congressional intervention. Today's bill incorporates provision from legislation I introduced earlier this year, empowering the administrator to request additional lending capacity from Congress to meet unexpected demand late in a fiscal year. H.R. 4743 strikes a meaningful balance between strong oversight and protecting the interests of small businesses who need loans. I want to thank Chairman Chabot and his staff for working in such a collaborative manner on this bill. I also want to thank Senator Risch, Shaheen, and Cardin and their staff for making this process both bipartisan and bicameral. Through debate and compromise, we arrived with a legislative product we can all be proud of, and that, most importantly, will help deserving small businesses access loan. I urge my colleagues to vote yes, and I yield back.
Thank you. The gentlelady yields back. Do any other members seek recognition? If not, the chair recognizes himself. From the retail shop on Main Street to the technology-focused startup, small businesses across the country have been utilizing the SBA's Capital Access Program for years. The SBA's largest financing tool is a 7A loan program, which is a government guarantee program reserved for credit-worthy small businesses that cannot access traditional or conventional lending. Recent growth on the 7A loan program has prompted heightened congressional interest. I, along with the ranking member and our Senate counterparts, set out last year to examine this program and the lender oversight tools currently available at the SBA. As a result of numerous hearings and countless meetings, the ranking member and I introduced this bill to ensure the integrity of the program and to further safeguard American taxpayer dollars. H.R. 4743 is a bipartisan and bicameral bill that codifies the SBA's Office of Credit Risk Management, strengthens the Lender Oversight Committee, and clarifies and reinforces the critically important credit elsewhere test, which determines eligibility into the program. I also want to thank the ranking member for her work in this bipartisan bill, all the other members who were involved as well. With any government guarantee program, vigorous and comprehensive oversight is required. In light of the recent SBA Office of Inspector General report on 7A poultry loans, reforms of this type are compulsory. H.R. 4743 provides this to small businesses, entrepreneurs, and startups across the nation. I urge my colleagues to support this important legislation. And if there's no further discussion, the committee now moves to consider H.R. 4743. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 4743.
Without objection, H.R. 4743 is considered as read, and as customary with committee practice, open for amendment at any time. I have an amendment at the desk, and the clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment 1 to H.R.
Without objection, the amendment is considered as read, and I now recognize myself to speak briefly on the amendment. This amendment makes a number of technical changes to the bill to strengthen the congressional intent of certain provisions and to provide the SBA with clear guidance on how to proceed with enactment. Additionally, this amendment provides flexibility to the SBA's Lender Oversight Committee membership structure and updates the lender review provisions to enhance implementation. Finally, this amendment updates Section 6 of the underlying bill pertaining to the waiver of regulations. To provide clarity, the change amends existing language to simply require the SBA to establish a process moving forward when regulations, standard operating procedures, and other notices are waived. This amendment strengthens the underlying bill, and I would urge my colleagues to support it. Are there any other members who wish to be recognized for a statement on the amendment? The gentlelady is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And I just want to support this amendment. It provides a number of thoughtful, common sense improvements to H.R. 4743. Most of these changes are technical in nature. A few are more substantive, like providing SBA with flexibility on the composition of the Lender Oversight Committee. All are necessary to obviously creating a better bill. But let me just take this opportunity to thank both SBA and industry stakeholders for working with the chairman and myself on this amendment. Your input has been invaluable, and I urge all the members to support this amendment.
Thank you very much. Gentlelady yields back. Do any other members wish to be heard on this amendment? If not, the question is on Amendment 1. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. Are there any other members who wish to be recognized for the purpose of offering an amendment? Seeing none, the question is now on H.R. 4743 as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it, and H.R. 4743 is amended as agreed to. The question now occurs on reporting H.R. 4743 as amended to the House. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it as amended. H.R. 4743 is reported to the House. And without objection, the committee staff is authorized to correct punctuation and make other necessary technical changes or corrections and conforming with those changes. Without objection, members shall be entitled to 2 days to file additional supplemental dissenting and minority views. To remind everyone, 2 days means the close of business this Friday. Our next bill for consideration is H.R. 51, that's one down, 5 to go. Our next bill for consideration is H.R. 5178, the Puerto Rico Small Business Contracting Assistance Act of 2018, introduced by the ranking member, Ms. Velasquez, and I would now like to recognize the ranking member to speak on H.R. 5178.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very proud of Puerto Rico, not only because it is where I was born, but because of the resilience of its people in the face of Hurricane Maria's devastation and long-standing economic challenges. And make no mistake, Puerto Rico faces enormous challenges. One thing is clear: if we are to restore prosperity in Puerto Rico, small businesses will be central to the equation. That is why I introduced H.R. 2488, the Puerto Rico Small Business Assistance Act, a comprehensive package of SBA assistance in lending, contracting, and entrepreneurial development to jumpstart Puerto Rico. While I am disappointed and saddened that we are not marking that bill up today, I appreciate the chairman's bringing H.R. 5178, the Puerto Rico Small Business Contracting Assistance Act, before the committee. This bill takes contracting provisions from the larger package and strengthens them to target assistance to small Puerto Rican contractors. There is currently a relatively small number of federal contracts that are performed in Puerto Rico. In fact, we held a hearing here where it was demonstrated those facts. And of the small number of federal contracts that are performed in Puerto Rico, a substantial percentage of those contracts, about 40%, are performed by firms outside of Puerto Rico. In fact, the total awards to Puerto Rican small businesses declined from about $426 million in FY 2014 to about $342 million in FY 2015. One reason for those poor numbers is a lack of education and training to potential contractors. In 2016, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York found that 19% of Puerto Rican small businesses cited a need for training on federal government contracts. My bill aims to increase contracting by offering incentives like granting agencies the ability to double the value of contract awards to Puerto Rican small business concerns when counting their small business prime contracting goal. It also provides more training opportunities for small firms who want to participate in the federal marketplace. To that end, it is my hope that this will be the first step of many to revitalize the island and its economy. We must remember that as citizens of the United States, Puerto Ricans have fought, shed blood, and given their lives in nearly every major American war. We owe it to them to help build Puerto Rico back better than ever before, and this bill takes one step in that direction. I urge my colleagues to vote for this measure. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Gentlelady yields back. Do any other members wish to be heard?
Chairman,
Yes. Gentlelady is recognized.
thank you, Mr.
Gentlelady
Chairman.
from Puerto Rico is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank Representative Velasquez for introducing H.R. 5178. And this initiative, who was based on H.R. 2429 as in a bipartisan way, and then 2488 of his authorship. And those bills will provide a lot of stability to the small business in Puerto Rico while promoting federal contracting among Puerto Rican enterprises. One of the main problems we still got is that a lot of Puerto Rican businesses are require more experience in terms of making federal contracts in the island, and they will never gain that experience if they are not allowed to be awarded. And that's the reason many of them are always subcontracted by businesses from the mainland and not from the island. So I hope the next bill can include those provisions. But say that stability is one of the such importance, especially during the economic hard times Puerto Rico is facing right now after the devastation of Hurricane Maria. I do support this bill, and I do think that local businesses face countless hurdles to make it almost impossible to participate in federal contracting. Although I need to say thank you to SBA Administrator. She just assigned one federal contracting officer to be established in the island during this month. So I think this is the right step to help Puerto Rico in promoting the economic growth of the island. According to the most recent statistics, Puerto Rican small businesses maintain approximately 280,000 jobs, and this number may seem a great number or significance from the mainland, but in a small economy that, like in Puerto Rico, that is equal to a quarter of the existing jobs in the island. So that's the importance of this kind of bill. That's the importance of contributing, letting small businesses in the island to be participating in federal contracting with the island and the mainland, and I urge the members of this committee to vote favorably on this bill, not only today, but when considered at the House floor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you very much. Gentlelady yields back. Does any other member seek recognition? If not, the chair recognizes himself to wrap up. There's little doubt that the island of Puerto Rico is in a state of severe economic crisis, which further deteriorated in the wake of devastation caused by Hurricane Irma and Maria. While federal efforts were swift in providing assistance, perhaps the greatest impact can be had by empowering small businesses on the island. Small businesses dominate Puerto Rico's economy. The power they have to rebuild and restore the economic vitality of their own communities cannot be overstated. In a hearing led by the Subcommittee on Contracting and Workforce this past July, we learned that only a fraction of small firms on the island participate in federal procurement, however. Agencies found these firms to be highly capable and competitive. The bill before the committee attempts to harness the power of small business procurement, identifying pro-growth solutions that stimulate small business job creation in the Commonwealth through increased federal procurement opportunities. I want to thank the ranking member. I'd like to thank the gentlelady from Puerto Rico as well, and I would urge my colleagues to support this bill. And if there's no further discussion, the committee now moves to consideration of H.R. 5178. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 5178 to
Without
amend.
objection, H.R. 5178 is considered as read and open for amendment at any point. Does anyone wish to offer an amendment? Seeing none, the question is now on H.R. 5178. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it, and the H.R. 5178 is agreed to. The question now occurs on reporting H.R. 5178 to the House. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it, and H.R. 5178 is reported to the House. So without objection, the committee staff is authorized to correct punctuation, to make other necessary and technical corrections and conforming changes, and without objection, members shall be entitled to 2 days to file additional, supplemental, dissenting, and minority views. The next bill we will consider is H.R. 3170, the Small Business Development Center Cyber Training Act of 2017. This bipartisan legislation, introduced by myself and Congressman Evans, would help Small Business Development Center, or SBDC, staff become better trained to assist small businesses with their cybersecurity and cyber strategy needs. I now recognize the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Norman, for an opening statement on H.R. 3170.
Thank you, Chairman Chabot. I'd like to voice my support for H.R. 3170, the Small Business Development Center Cyber Training Act of 2017. After hearing from a long list of small business hearing witnesses in recent months, I think it's obvious that this bipartisan and bicameral legislation strengthens American small businesses' cyber defenses. By requiring the SBDCs to train staff in cybersecurity matters, the federal government can more effectively offer assistance to small businesses that are planning their cybersecurity strategies. H.R. 3170 will make it possible for small businesses to receive guidance and counseling on the most up-to-date cybersecurity practices at virtually no cost. This is exactly what small businesses need. Urge my colleagues to support, and I yield back.
Thank you very much. Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Evans, the co-sponsor of this bill, is recognized for as long as he wants.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ranking Member. I thank both of you for convening this important markup as we look forward to finding solutions to address gaps in policies as they relate to our small businesses. H.R. 317, which was introduced last year, is yet another example of the tool in the toolbox for small businesses, and illustrates the important role that government can play in areas of cybersecurity, which continue to develop and ripens its direction in collaboration and oversight. Our small businesses owners and entrepreneurs are the engines that drive people to live, grow, and succeed in our neighborhoods. We know that our small business community face increasing cyber threats in our ever-changing, evolving, global world. To that end, the bill directs the SBA administrator to establish a cyber counseling certification program and approves that it is already in operation. The legislation provides protection for small business development centers so that they can have resources and tactics to help defend against cyber risks and cyber attacks. Every day we hear about issues relating to national security and cyber attacks that are threatening us. We're all part of a cyberspace, and we have to ensure that the proper safety precautions are in place. We're also a part of a global economy, and we want to ensure that our small businesses remain safe in the global marketplace from online attacks. We know that small businesses are especially at risk if it's related to cyber attacks. Therefore, we must ensure that our small businesses have the ability to invest in the protection needed, and then we also ensure prosperous coordination of federal resources. Again, I want to thank the chairman and the ranking member for their leadership and their staffs. I yield back the balance of my time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Gentleman yields back. Do any other members seek recognition? If not, the chair will recognize himself to wrap up on this bill. Information technology is a necessity for small businesses because it equips them with the tools they need to be competitive in the global economy. Unfortunately, small businesses are becoming increasingly popular targets for cyber criminals. The average cost of a cyber attack on a small business is over $30,000, which can destroy a small business. That's exactly why Congressman Evans and I introduced H.R. 3170, the Small Business Development Center Cyber Training Act of 2017. This bipartisan and bicameral legislation establishes a cyber counseling certification program in, in lead of SBA's to lead the SBA to better assist small businesses with planning and implementing cybersecurity measures to defend against cyber attacks. The cyber assistance offered by training staff at SBDCs would be provided at no cost or low cost to small businesses. Cyber planning assistance will encourage small businesses to take a more proactive approach to defending themselves from cyber attacks by leveraging the expertise from SBDCs and their partner agencies and institutions. This bill utilizes existing federal resources to cover the reimbursement costs. We recognize cyber threats are ever evolving, and we will continue to work with industry to ensure that appropriate staffing needs are met. I would urge my colleagues to support the measure, and if no other members seek recognition, the committee now moves to consideration of H.R. 3170. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 3170.
Without objection, H.R. 3170 is considered as read and, as customary with the committee practice, open for amendment at any point. Are there any other members who wish to be recognized for purpose of offering an amendment? Seeing none, the question is on consideration of H.R. 3170. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it, and H.R. 3170 is agreed to. The question now occurs on reporting H.R. 3170 to the House. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it, and H.R. 3170 is reported to the House. And without objection, the committee staff is authorized to correct punctuation and to make other necessary technical corrections and conforming changes. Without objection, members shall be entitled to 2 days for additional supplemental, dissenting, and minority views. That's 3 down, 3 to go. The next bill we will be marking up today is H.R. 4668, the Small Business Advanced Cybersecurity Enhancements Act of 2017. This bipartisan legislation, introduced by myself and the ranking member and co-sponsored by a number of members of this committee, aims to increase the defensive measures available for small businesses undergoing or concerned about a cyber attack. It would incentivize additional information sharing between private sector and the federal government. I would now like to recognize the gentleman from Utah, Mr. Curtis, for his opening statement on H.R. 4668.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a co-sponsor of this bill, I'd like to voice my support for H.R. 4668, the Small Business Advanced Cybersecurity Enhancement Act of 2017. My home state of Utah is a hotspot for innovative startup companies and small businesses. We refer to our flourishing tech sector as Silicon Slopes. 96.7% of Utah's companies are small businesses, and nearly half of Utah's workers are employed by small businesses. I am proud to say that this committee has worked diligently on cybersecurity issues for some time now. I believe that this bipartisan legislation is a worthy culmination of those efforts. As we have heard time and time again, small businesses are severely under-equipped to manage and defend against the onslaught of cyber attacks that they face on a regular basis. It is critical that we encourage greater information sharing between the federal government and small businesses to both mitigate future cyber attacks and ensure that our small businesses have access to the resources they need in a timely and effective manner. H.R. 4668 does just that. This legislation encourages information sharing by rewarding small businesses for engaging with the small business development centers and their federal partners not punishing them. I firmly believe that an increase in information sharing will lead to more secure cybersecurity infrastructure and therefore a more secure economy and marketplace for America's small businesses. I urge my colleagues to support this bill, and I yield back my time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Gentleman yields back. The ranking member, Ms. Velasquez, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ever since Russia used cyber attacks to influence the outcome of our 2016 elections, cybersecurity has been thrust to the forefront of national discussions. In today's world, everything from electoral integrity to national security to private sector trade secrets are at risk of cyber exploitation. Encouraging businesses to share information is just one step in our national framework preventing cyber attacks. Information sharing should be a symbiotic relationship to help federal agencies design solutions before problems occur. To this end, I am proud to join the chairman in supporting H.R. 4668, the Small Business Advanced Cybersecurity Enhancements Act of 2017. This bill establishes a central small business cybersecurity assistance unit coordinated by SBA and federal agencies, including DHS. This helped to bring much-needed hands-on cybersecurity training to small business across the country. I believe this is a sensible change to the current framework to address a daunting challenge for millions of businesses, good cyber hygiene. I urge my colleagues to vote yes, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. And in the interest of time, rather than go through this, I would just urge my colleagues to support this bill. I think everything that needs to be said on this probably has been said. So I'm going to waive my opening, or my, although I'm taking up time right now telling you about it. So let's move on. Does any other member seek recognition?
Chairman,
I heard something.
Have an
from
amendment.
The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
have an amendment.
Okay. Was it? What's that? We'll get to you in just a moment.
Okay.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion on that, the committee now moves to consideration of H.R. 4668. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R.
Without
4668.
objection, H.R. 4668 is considered as read and as customary with committee practice, open for amendment at any point. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for the purpose of offering an amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I urge my colleagues to support this amendment. I believe it is a common sense measure that redirects funding to ensure that the Small Business Development Center's cybersecurity assistant units will be developed expeditiously while not burdening the American taxpayer with an additional cost in the process. This amendment also signals Congress's serious commitment to improving the overall cybersecurity posture of America's small business. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman finished? Okay, thank you very much. And the gentleman does have an amendment at the desk, and the clerk will report that amendment.
Amendment 1 to
Without objection,
H.R.
that amendment will be considered as read. Are there any other members who wish to be recognized to make a statement on this amendment? Hearing none, this amendment makes a technical change to redirect funding from the Portable Assistance Grant Program to fund the development SBDC's Cybersecurity Assistance Unit. This is a straightforward amendment that ensures the act is carried out effectively, and I would urge my colleagues to support it. Are there any other members who wish to be recognized for the purpose of making a statement on the amendment? Seeing none, the question is on Amendment 1. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. Are there any other members who have amendments they'd like to offer on this bill? Okay. Yep. Seeing none, I have an amendment at the desk, and the clerk will report that amendment.
Amendment 2 to H.R.
Without objection, the amendment is
4668.
considered as read, and I would now recognize myself to speak on the amendment. This amendment makes a technical change to clarify the intent of H.R. 4668 by ensuring that the liability protections being provided to small businesses do not imply that Congress intends for legal actions to be brought against other entities not covered by the enhanced liability protections in this bill. This amendment is important because H.R. 4668 aims to increase small business information sharing practices and strengthen America's overall cybersecurity posture. But we must not put other entities not covered by this legislation in harm's way in the process, and I would urge my colleagues to support the amendment. Are there any other members who wish to be recognized for a statement on this amendment? Did you want to say anything? Okay. Seeing none, the question is on Amendment 2. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. Are there any other members who wish to be recognized for the purpose of offering an amendment? Seeing none, the question is now on H.R. 4668 as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and H.R. 4668 as amended is agreed to. The question now occurs on reporting H.R. 4668 as amended to the House. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and H.R. 4668 as amended is reported to the House. Without objection, the committee staff is authorized to correct punctuation and make other necessary technical corrections and conforming changes. Without objection, members shall be entitled to 2 days to file additional supplemental, dissenting, and minority views. Our next bill is H.R. 2655, the Small Business Innovation Protection Act of 2017. This bipartisan bill, introduced by Mr. Evans of Pennsylvania and co-sponsored by Mr. Fitzpatrick, also of Pennsylvania, would provide entrepreneurs with greater information on the importance of securing intellectual property protections. I now recognize the author of the bill, the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Evans, for an opening statement on H.R. 2655.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and also thank you to the ranking member. I want to thank my colleague, Congressman Fitzpatrick, for co-sponsoring this important piece of legislation with me, and would note that we had trade field hearings in Congress in Philadelphia, and the other was most recently held in Bucks County. H.R. 2655 directs that a new partnership be formed between the SBA, the U.S. Patent and Trade Office, to develop highly quality training for small businesses in the area of domestic and international protection for intellectual property. That is why we created this program, to assist entrepreneurs in starting their own businesses, providing structural and helping them prosper. And in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, where we have almost 1 million small businesses, which according to the Pennsylvania SBDC employs 2.4 million workers and make up 47% of the private sector labor force. It is critical that these businesses be able to protect their intellectual property so they are free to continue to grow, innovate, and prosper. And frankly, Mr. Chairman, this is something that I believe is very bipartisan. I thank you and the ranking member for your leadership, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you very much. Gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Fitzpatrick, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for considering this bill, H.R. 2655, the Small Business Innovation Protection Act. And I also want to thank my friend and colleague, Dwight Evans, for all his work on this issue. Dwight is a real leader in our region on all issues pertaining to small business. He's not afraid to work across the aisle to help his constituents in that regard. So, Dwight, thank you for your work on this. Intellectual property rights, such as patents, trademarks, and copyrights, are important tools that small business owners can use to protect their ideas and products. These intellectual property protections are essential to promoting entrepreneurship and innovation. However, small business owners often do not have the expertise or resources to protect their ideas and products, and are left vulnerable to them being stolen both here in the United States and internationally. Many small business owners are not aware of the importance of intellectual property protections, and those that are not do not necessarily know how to go about obtaining these protections. The United States Patent and Trademark Office, the USPTO, has found that only 15% of small businesses that conduct business overseas are aware that they need to file for intellectual property protections abroad. This is due to the fact that many small business owners cannot afford specialized legal counsel. and do not always have the resources to track the intellectual property theft of their products on a global scale. This bill will help more small businesses receive better access to education and training opportunities regarding intellectual property protections both domestically and abroad. And Mr. Chairman, I urge my colleagues to support this important bill, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Thank you. The ranking member is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to say, to recognize the important work that Mr. Evans and Mr. Fitzpatrick have done on putting forward this important piece of legislation that I'm sure will advance the interests of our nation's small businesses. So I urge my colleagues to support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you
I
very
yield
much.
back.
Gentlelady yields back, and I would like to reiterate what the ranking member just said. I want to thank our colleagues for working in a bipartisan manner here, Mr. Evans and Mr. Fitzpatrick, on this legislation. In a truly global marketplace, small entrepreneurs must have the tools to protect their intellectual property. The process for obtaining copyright, trademark, and patents both here and abroad can be daunting for even the most experienced small business owner. As we have noted when talking about paperwork and regulatory burdens at past hearings, most small businesses simply can't afford to retain attorneys to guide them through the difficult process of obtaining intellectual property protections. This bipartisan legislation addresses this issue by forming a partnership between the SBA and the United States Patent and Trademark Office, or USPTO, giving entrepreneurs the full breadth of knowledge of the SBDC system and the USPTO. I would urge my colleagues to support this common sense bipartisan legislation. Is there any other member who seeks recognition? If there's no further discussion, the committee now moves to consideration of H.R. 2655, and the clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R.
Without
2655.
objection, H.R. 2655 is considered as read and, as customary with committee practice, open for amendment at any point. Are there any members who wish to be recognized for the purpose of offering an amendment? If seeing none, the question is now on H.R. 2655. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. And H.R. 2655 is agreed to. The question now occurs on reporting H.R. 2655 to the House. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. And H.R. 2655 is reported to the House. Without objection, the committee staff is authorized to correct punctuation and make other necessary technical corrections and conforming changes. Without objection, members shall be entitled to 2 days to file additional supplemental, dissenting, and minority views. And that's 5 down, 1 to go. Our final piece of legislation today is H.R. 5236, the Main Street Employee Ownership Act of 2018, introduced by Ranking Member Velasquez. H.R. 5236 proposes reforms to SBA's rules pertaining to employee-owned small businesses and their lending prospects. I would now recognize Ranking Member for opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As baby boomers near retirement, the country will face a substantial dilemma. Roughly half of the nation's privately held companies are owned by baby boomers, and fewer than 15% of these entrepreneurs have a formal exit plan in place. And while it is wonderful to think that family members will take over the business, this is relatively rare occurrence. It is anticipated that many of these businesses will be bought by a rival. Others will close altogether, resulting in potential harm to 25 million people employed by these companies. This will have significant secondary economic impacts that will ripple through our local communities. I have been working very closely with Senator Gillibrand's office to help address this looming problem. The bill before us will reward workers and invest in our Main Street economy by improving the lending landscape for employee-owned businesses, such as employee stock ownership plans or co-ops. There are already 7,000 such companies in existence all over the nation, contributing to our local communities and economies. However, businesses seeking to transition to employee-owned status face difficulty obtaining adequate capital to cover the oftentimes prohibitive costs, upwards of $80,000. The SBA was authorized to loan to ESOPs in 1979. Unfortunately, this tool has been rarely used due to a lack of understanding of the business structure and cumbersome transition requirements. These businesses are good investment as only about 2 of every 1,000 default on a loan, and they pay their employees 5 to 12% more than their counterparts. My bill seeks to align common industry practices with SBA protocols to encourage more lending to ESOPs and co-ops. By codifying current SBA standards of practice and easing some burdensome guarantee restriction, it is my hope we will keep local enterprises in their communities, saving jobs along the way and preventing economic dislocation for many workers. This bill is endorsed by at least 25 organizations, including America's SBDCs, the American Sustainable Business Council, the Association for Enterprise Opportunity, ESCA, and a variety of co-ops and employee owner associations. I urge my colleagues to vote yes, and I yield back.
Thank you very much. Gentlelady yields back. Are there any other members who wish to be recognized to make a statement on this bill? Seeing none, I now recognize myself. 100% employee-owned business structures play excuse me, an important role in the small business ecosystem. However, like other small businesses trying to expand and hire workers, employee stock ownership plans, also known as ESOPs, and worker cooperatives continue to face a rigid lending environment. Not only do these distinctly structured organizations face traditional lending hurdles, they face uncertain guidelines administered by the SBA. As a solution, Ranking Member Velasquez introduced H.R. 5236, the Main Street Employee Ownership Act. H.R. 5236 provides important reforms to how the SBA treats employee-owned businesses, from updating reporting statistics to capture accurate data to codifying ownership transition plans. H.R. 5236 will provide clarity to small businesses that truly need it. I want to thank the ranking member for spearheading these reforms, and I would urge my colleagues to support this bill. Are there any other members who seek recognition? There's no further discussion. The committee now moves to consideration of H.R. 5236. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 5236.
Without objection, H.R. 5236 is considered as read, and as customary with committee practice, open for amendment at any time, and I have an amendment at the desk. Clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment 1 to H.R.
Without objection, the
52.
amendment is considered as read, and I recognize myself to speak on the amendment. This amendment provides both technical changes and modifies the language of H.R. 5236 to preserve one of the hallmarks of the program, the personal guarantee. Although a rigid lending environment presents challenges for small businesses of all types, the personal guarantee cannot be altered. It is the cornerstone of the program. However, this amendment requires SBA to study this issue and develop an alternative solution for cooperatives to satisfy the personal guarantee problems inherently built into their structure. This amendment further protects the integrity of the 7A loan program, and I would urge my colleagues to support this amendment. Are there any other members who wish to be recognized for a statement on this amendment?
Sure, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, the ranking member is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment makes reasonable and necessary changes to H.R. 5326. I want to thank the chairman and his staff for working with us on this amendment and the underlying bill. While I will prefer to keep the personal guarantee waiver section as is, I understand your concerns, and I appreciate you including a study of the issue in the amendment. From that study, we'll find viable alternatives to allow the co-op community to fully participate in the 7A program like other business types. I also want to thank both SBA and the industry stakeholders for working with us to craft this amendment. In my opinion, this bill, as amended, embodies the true spirit of SBA mission, helping those that want to become small business owners achieve their dream. While ESOPs and co-op may not be your traditional business model, they are uniquely positioned to help meet this goal. I urge all the members to support the amendment, and I thank the chairman for offering it. I yield back.
Thank you very much, Gentlelady yields back. Are there any other members who wish to be recognized for a statement on the amendment? Seeing no other people who want to comment, the question is on Amendment 1, and all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. Are there any other members who wish to be recognized for the purpose of offering an amendment? Seeing none, the question is now on H.R. 5236 as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and H.R. 5236 as amended is agreed to. And the question now occurs on reporting H.R. 5236 as amended to the House. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and H.R. 5236 as amended is reported to the House. Without objection, the committee staff is authorized to correct punctuation and make other necessary technical corrections and conforming changes. And without objection, members shall be entitled 2 days to file additional supplemental dissenting and minority views. That's 6 out of 6. And I want to thank all the members for being here today, all our staff, any of the folks that are interested in any of these in the audience. I think that concludes our business for today. And we did 6 bills in exactly 1 hour. In your face Ways and Means, and financial services, energy and commerce. That's the way you do it in a small business committee, right? All right. Thank you, everybody. Well done, madam. Thank you. If there's no further business to come before the committee, we are adjourned. Thank you. All right, there we go.
Congratulations. Good job.